in the process of selling off a bunch of guns that I've been doing in the last few years just to lose some baggage, I guess, for lack of a better term. One conundrum I've faced is these two revolvers. They're very similar, but there's enough difference that I couldn't decide which one to part with. They're both Smith & Wesson. This is a Smith & Wesson 686 plus 7-shot, 357 Magnum, pretty common revolver. This is a Smith & Wesson, another L frame. It's a 986, but it's in 9mm. There's only a quarter of an inch difference in barrel length. They both hold 7 shots. They're both L frame, so they both use the same holsters. There's just a lot of overlap in what they do and what they're capable of. And I could never decide on getting rid of one of them, keeping both, or what. So I've just held on to both. And I think I have come up with a solution. The 686 Plus, it's a great gun. 7-shot, uses speed loaders. Can shoot 357 Magnum, 38 Special. Being an L frame, they can take a constant diet of full house 357s without hurting it. The 986, again, a 7-shot using moon clips, but it doesn't have the power range of a gun in both 357 Magnum and 38 Special. It has a lot more factory options for good defensive ammo. 9mm is just a lot more common caliber nowadays for defensive purposes. I love the 357, been loading it for 40 plus years. But I reload both of them, so that's not the biggest consideration, I guess. And I came across a solution that may be borderline blasphemy to some folks. These are both really good revolvers. They're not fancy, they're not sexy, they just work. They're like the F-150s of the revolver world. So what if you could take these two, 357 Magnum and the 9mm, and just combine them into one gun, and if you did that, this is what you would have. 7-shot, 9mm, same moon clips. Swap out the cylinder. 7-shot, 357 Magnum, even using the same speed loaders, is the 686. The issue was, this is a Taurus. And we all know Taurus doesn't have the reputation that Smith & Wesson has. I've owned Taurus guns for a long time. I used to compete with the Taurus 92 back before I could afford better guns. And I've had some really good ones, and I had a couple of not so great ones. This one, so far, is very, very good, more than acceptable. In fact, the order they're in is about the order of their trigger quality. This has the best trigger of the three, but it should. It's a performance center gun. Smith & Wesson's in-house custom shop. This is only the second performance center gun I've ever owned. The 686 has an okay trigger, totally serviceable, but this one is better. And this one only has a couple of hundred rounds through it. This has thousands. So it's borderline blasphemy, I realize, but I'm seriously considering hanging on to this Taurus after I put another, 600-800 more rounds through it to test it where I know I can trust it. I may go ahead and get rid of both of those Smith & Wessons. That's a weird thing to say for an old gun fud like me, getting rid of two Smith & Wessons, especially a Smith & Wesson Performance Center, in favor of replacing them both with one Taurus. But by golly, it seems to make a lot of sense so far. So I'm going to put some more rounds through it, come back to it, and come back to this video and kind of give you updates as I go. This will be done in numerous pieces, so I'll try to keep it from dragging out too much, but that's a decision I never thought I'd be making, keeping one Taurus in place of two Smith & Wesson revolvers. But so far, that's the direction I'm leaning. I'll update this as I get some more rounds through it and let y'all know what I finally decide. Okay, well, we're going to try the 3-inch Taurus time-wise, see how it compares. I've only clocked myself once with the 986 on the same target at the same distance, and it was right at 1.75. Let's just see how this compares. Huh, darn close. 177. 2/100ths of a second difference. Okay. And same kind of split times, 0.26, 0.25, 0.29. That was slow. 0.24. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try them again. The Taurus 692 with the 9mm cylinder in it. 7 shots on a reduced size silhouette. Again, my only recorded time with my 986 was one time a year or so ago. 1.75 for all 7 shots. Let's try it here. There's the timer. Had to get the timer off the back of the truck. So let's go ahead and try them one more time. I got 177 on the first run. Let's see how it does this time. Ah, that felt slow. That felt slow. Well, slower. 178. So, yeah. And the times are very similar to the 986. 0.25, 0.25, 0.27, 0.27. And I lost them. So, as far as rate of fire, it's kind of a non-issue between the two. They're within just a couple hundredths of a second of each other, and that's likely me, just a little bit of difference in the grips. These grips are slightly different than the ones on the Smith. Not much, but I'm going to attribute that 3/100ths of a second difference to that. Or it could just be that I'm older and slower now. Could be either one. But so far, so good. I'll run a few more 100 rounds through it and report back to you again. One thing that's pretty minor, but I do like about the 692 is that it doesn't have the mechanical disabling lock that so many revolvers do nowadays. Okay, the next comparison I wanted to do was with 357 Magnum loads instead of the 9mm. The 686 Plus and the 692 both have the same barrel length, but the 692 is ported, which the Smith is not. So I just want to run them side by side with some good Magnum loads, all factory stuff, to get a fair and repeatable result. First off, pretty standard Federal 125 grain hollow point. Stepping up from there, Underwood 125 grain XTP. And then lastly, Buffalo Bore heavy 158 grain jacketed hollow point. About the heaviest factory 357 load I have. So I'm going to start off with the Federal, load up just a couple rounds of each load in each gun, and just get a subjective feel for what difference that porting makes, if any at all. It's not going to be scientific. It's not going to be objective. It is just subjective and anecdotal, but all you can do is all you can do. So let me get some loaded up, and we'll get started on this. Okay, first up will be the 686 Plus with the Federal 125 grain jacketed hollow point. Just 2 rounds. See if I can get in the frame. Substantial, but not unbearable at all. Okay. Taurus 692 with the same Federal 125 grain jacketed hollow point. Interesting. Slightly lower recoil, but definitely louder, which is to be expected. Okay, I widened the view a little bit. I didn't realize I was almost at a frame a bit ago. Next up, same thing with the Underwood 125 grain XTP. First up, are we good in the frame there? Yeah. First up out of the 686. Okay. Not much different from the Federal. Okay. Same load out of the Taurus 692. See if the porting has any effect on this Underwood stuff. No. Not tons. I can't tell much difference in the two. Next up is the Buffalo Bore. They're heavy 158 grain jacketed hollow point that I believe is an XTP bullet. So again, same thing out of the Smith. Yeah, that's definitely snappier. Okay, same Buffalo Bore out of the ported Taurus. If it doesn't make a huge difference with this load, it probably won't make much difference with any load. This is a pretty heavy load. Definitely the heaviest of the 3 I've done so far. Yeah, that was a little less than the out of the Smith. That porting is helping a little bit. Yeah. Louder. But there's no way around that with porting. So far, I'm not seeing a lot of advantage to having both the 686 and the 986 when the 692 seems to do everything they both do. What I'll probably do is just give it a little more time, maybe for the rest of the year, use only the Taurus 692 and kind of let the 2 Smith & Wesson sit idle, and that'll give me a chance to get a bunch of additional rounds through it just for longevity testing. But so far in the, Lord, I don't know at this point, 700-800 rounds I've got through it, that's the direction I'm leaning. So we will see, and I may put this up or I may wait. So appreciate it.